Hey, how's it going? This is Matt here from Silver Fortune. I want to take a couple steps back in this video and kind of look at the broader picture for silver and gold and why you should invest in silver and gold in the first place. This is something I do from time to time on this channel. I understand that a lot of my videos can be very technical. Sometimes they look into the nitty gritty of the silver and gold market. I try and educate you guys on this. I like you guys to have a significant amount of depth to your knowledge on silver and gold. I want to share my knowledge with you. And so, yeah, sometimes I get very much in depth with silver demand or supply, or I'll talk about the stock market, bond market, the Federal Reserve, the economy, and I go on and on. Sometimes I'll look about how the markets have been doing over the last day or week or month. But in this video, I really ask myself, who do I want to make this video for? I want to make this video for just about any video that might be stopping by on this Silver Fortune channel, asking themselves the question, why should I buy silver and gold? Or alternatively, why should I stay invested in silver and gold? I want to make this for you if this is one of the very first YouTube channels you're watching on silver and gold, asking yourselves that very question, why should I buy silver and gold? I want to make this video applicable to you if you have been a stacker. That's what we call ourselves, stackers. We stack coins or bars of silver and gold. If you've been a stacker for 5 years now, or for 10 years now, or you've been with the Silver Fortune channel for months, or maybe since the very beginning, I want to make this for you as well. I want to make this for you if you're watching this channel a couple minutes after I publish it, or a couple months or years into the future. I want to make this applicable across the board. Now, I want to answer that question, why should I invest in silver and gold? I want to give you the top 3 reasons in this video. The number one reason, I want to start with the number one reason that you should buy silver and gold, why it's a wise investment choice, is a hedge. Okay, what's a hedge? What the heck is a hedge? I understand that if you're new to investing, if you're new to the markets, you ask yourself, what is a hedge? A hedge is a, you can call it a safe haven asset. It is basically you making a bet on things going awry. Okay, so maybe not, but maybe you are heavily invested in stocks. Maybe you have a 401k or an IRA, or maybe you actually control your own stock investments and you kind of manage that yourself, which, kudos to you if you do that and you don't just pay somebody else to do it. Great. What happens if your investments in stock or real estate or bonds or currencies, what if those take a turn for the worse? What if they do poorly? Okay, or what if you save? You're a saver. Okay, you don't invest, you just save in dollars. What if your dollars start to rapidly lose their value? They're slowly losing their value every day. But what if that starts to accelerate? You want a hedge. You want to protect yourself against that type of loss on your investments, and that is where silver and gold shine. Okay, no pun intended. They shine in their role as a hedge, meaning that when other asset classes, especially fiat currency, because remember, silver and gold were a real currency, they were real money for thousands of years, something like 6,000 years I've heard silver and gold have been used as money. And in some ways, they still can fill that role today. They can hedge against the decline in value of a fiat currency, i.e. just about every currency we have on the face of the earth today, a paper currency that has no real worth other than basically government saying, look, we printed this is the official currency, use this as currency, accept it as legal tender, use it as legal tender. Now, we know that things like the dollar or the yen or the yuan, they're very prone to inflation. They can lose their value over a long period of time. Sometimes it's slowly, a couple of percentage points a year. That's what we have going on right now here in the United States. Sometimes that can accelerate. Look at Venezuela. They are dealing with hundreds or thousands % of inflation each year, meaning that if they had $1,000 within a year, that $1,000 might only be able to buy, $1 worth. That's how significant their inflation is. Okay, but this hedge, it doesn't just apply to fiat currencies. This hedge is also for other investments as well. For instance, the stock market. The stock market is in a very big bubble right now. Has been for a long time. It had a bit of a correction recently, but it's in a very large bubble. And when the stock market corrects by 20%, by 30%, by 40%, where are you going to put your money? You could say, okay, the dollar, I could put my money into a fiat currency, into cash, and hold it there while the stock market drops. And that might work, assuming that the dollar isn't significantly losing value. You could say you could put it in the bond market, but the bond market is also in a massive bubble right now. Okay, you can say the real estate market. You somehow find a way to invest in real estate. It's also very overvalued. Basically, what we have going on right now at the time I'm making this video, early 2018, is what we call an everything bubble, a bubble in so many different asset classes where all these valuations are extremely high. They're much higher than they should be, and inevitably they're going to drop in their value. Again, that's where silver and gold come in. They're a hedge, meaning that when stocks or bonds or real estate are dropping, or fiat currencies, you can expect precious metals to drop at a slower rate or not at all, or most likely you can expect them to rise significantly. In fact, I just made a video a couple days ago talking about how we had a 10% correction in the stock markets, and one of my contacts over at SD Bullion said that during that period of time, they had their 10 best days business-wise in their entire history because of how many people left stocks or were worried about the stock market or the bond market and went into precious metals. It's a hedge. It can be a short-term hedge over the span of just a couple of years, but let me remind you that throughout human history, we've seen empires rise and fall. We've seen massive corporations rise and fall. We've seen dynasties, families, these massive rich families rise and fall. But silver and gold have held their value for thousands of years. It is a generational. This type of a hedge can last hundreds or thousands of years, okay? And so that is perhaps the number one reason to buy precious metals, to buy silver and gold, because they're going to have their value no matter what. And that is not a guarantee for paper assets. That's not a guarantee for things like stock or real estate. Those valuations can drop much more, in my opinion, than silver and gold. Number two reason to buy precious metals, and maybe I've already used this terminology in this video, and I try not to too often, investing in precious metals. There's a lot of guys that will tell you that precious metals are not an investment. And, the reason that they say that, I understand. Their argument is valid to some extent. They say that precious metals, they don't have some sort of a yield like bonds do. They don't have some sort of a dividend. They don't have a corporation that they are part ownership of like stocks. So you're not going to dividend. The valuation of a corporation is not going up with precious metals. It's just a hunk of an element, And so basically it's not a traditional investment. But the number two reason to buy precious metals, from my point of view, is as an investment. And so yes, these guys will tell you that it's not an investment. It's just a hedge. It's just a safe haven asset. But the fact remains that silver and gold, in my opinion, and I can talk ad end, for hours probably about why I believe this to be the case, but silver and gold are undervalued right now. They are undervalued, especially silver, okay, right now at the time of making this video. And again, if you're watching this months or years in the future, this might vary, but right now, the gold to silver ratio is roughly 80-1, meaning that 1 ounce of gold is roughly worth 80 ounces of silver. That is insane. Throughout human history, that is an abnormality, especially when you account for how much silver is used in electronics and just basically about everything in our modern lives. In some way, silver is involved in the production of that or something along those lines. It is massively undervalued. It is manipulated by paper markets. That ratio should be much lower. I couldn't tell you an exact number because I don't think there is a perfect number. That's kind of the case about any market, right? What's the perfect price for stocks or for silver or for gold? I couldn't tell you, but that ratio should be much lower. 30-1, 20-1, 15-1. I've heard people say like 2-1 or 1-1, or that silver should be more valuable than gold. I don't know the ultimate answer, but I know that 80-1 is extremely high, and that silver is very undervalued, extremely undervalued, perhaps the most undervalued asset in the world. Now, gold is pretty undervalued as well, but again, the number two reason to invest or to buy precious metals is as an investment, because you expect their value to go up in the future. People will say that they're not investment, but you're buying them with the hopes of them going up in the future. Now there's a variety of reasons as to why they can go up in the future. For instance, if the value of a currency, a fiat currency, starts to drop significantly, you can see the price of silver and gold go up, again, as a hedge, but you can see it go up even beyond just keeping pace with inflation because of how much people are looking for a tangible asset. Additionally, in the past, we've had what you would call acute shortages of silver and gold, meaning that over a short period of time, weeks or maybe a couple months, there's a shortage of physical silver and gold on the market, especially investment grade coins and bars. Now, there's a variety of reasons as to why I think this will occur in the future again, but to kind of sum it up for you, what we have right now is a silver market, and I'm mostly talking about silver here in terms of shortages. There's a lot of gold, but in the world, but I'm mostly talking about silver here. What we have going on in the silver market right now is a price that has been suppressed for a very long period of time, meaning that silver miners don't invest a whole lot in new production. Okay, even though silver production right now for a long time has not been keeping pace with demand, meaning that extra demand has to be met with above ground silver out of a vault somewhere, or somebody's hoard of their stash of silver. That has to be met with that demand. But when the price of silver goes up, when investment increases significantly, if the stock market or the bond market or currencies crash, that supply cannot be increased. Mining supply cannot be increased very rapidly because of how little investments have been made in silver mining in the past. You could add on to that the fact that something like 60 to 70% of silver production comes from a byproduct mine, meaning that these mines, again, I don't want to get too nitty gritty here, but basically these mines are not mining silver primarily. They're mostly mining things like lead, zinc, copper, gold. Those are the big four. And they mine silver as a byproduct, right? They take up all this ore and they decide that, it's cost effective to also extract some silver from this ore. And so they do that as well. And that's about where 70% of silver production comes from. It's not from all these primary silver mines. And so what that means is if the economy slows down in the future, along with the stock market crashing and the bond market doing poorly, or the dollar crashing, you have this massive influx in demand for precious metals. But you have a decrease in demand for these other metals like zinc or copper or lead, which are very dependent on how the economies of the world are doing. And so when their demand is decreased, their supply drops off because their price would be going down. And then you have a decreased supply of silver coming to the market. And so I could go on. Again, I can talk about this for hours as to why silver and gold are an investment. But the point of this, and you can get more into that in other videos here on this channel, there are a plethora of them on this channel and many other channels as to why that's the case, why they're an investment. But that's really the number two reason. That should be your number two reason, I think. You should understand that silver and gold, sure, they can be a speculative investment, but if you don't, if you're in this for the long haul, and if you don't want to be disappointed by silver and gold, think of it as a hedge first and foremost, because otherwise they will likely disappoint you. I've had too many comments here on this channel, people saying that I bought a very large amount of silver or a very large amount of gold a couple months ago because I watched such and such video saying that silver was going to be at $400 within a couple months, or that gold was going to be at $10,000. That doesn't happen. Surprise, surprise, these specific predictions don't come true. And they're kind of ticked off about it. They're saying, you know what, I bought this and it is never going to go up in price. They kind of throw a fit about it. Okay. That's not going to happen to you if you manage your expectations and understand that the investment aspect of silver and gold, this can take a very long time to play out. It could be a matter of weeks or months from now. It could be, but it could be a couple of years as well. But the great thing is that, you can use it as a hedge. You can use it as a savings account if you wanted to. For a long period of time, you could save for your kids, college, or you could, save for retirement with precious metals. That's another great thing about it. The number three reason to invest in precious metals, invest in silver and gold, and this is something that a lot of guys don't always think about. It makes you a part of something bigger, and this is something I talk about on this channel in many of my videos in the past. You can become part of what I call a monetary revolution. Okay? Because I have a lot of people that come here on this channel and they're upset about government oftentimes. They're upset about how government has spent their tax dollars. They're upset that they're getting taxed in the first place. They're upset about foreign wars. They're upset about too many laws here at home. They're upset about all these different issues. They're upset about Congress and how poorly they do their job, or their state governments or whatever. They're very mad at government. And in fact, oftentimes these people would identify as, conservative or libertarian or whatever. And too many times in the past, I've seen people advocate for a full-blown bloody revolution to overthrow our government. Just like here in the United States, just like we did back in 1776, the War for Independence, the Revolutionary War, and so many other countries around the world have had similar wars, similar fights for independence. But the fact of the matter is that these bloody revolutions are just that. They're bloody. People die, right? Look at what's going on in Syria right now. This is hardly an organic civil war that's going on in Syria, but it is bloody. There have been hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people that have died already. So many more that have been wounded or displaced. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, what's happening in these other countries. And in fact, what happened here in the United States, personally, I believe, was an aberration in history, meaning that generally revolutions like that do not go so well. We got lucky. Not only were we successful, our rebellion wasn't totally crushed, but we also got a pretty good government to go along with it. A pretty good set of leaders. I happen to be a big fan of a lot of the founding fathers. They weren't perfect, but they definitely set a good foundation for our country with things like the Constitution. But lo and behold, a lot of that was eroded within a couple decades, and today there's not a whole lot that remains of it. And so people are advocating for a revolution, but remember that there are significant downsides to a bloody revolution, and you can achieve some of those same goals through what I call a monetary revolution, where you seek to remove yourself from the system. This can be removing yourself from the banking system. This can be you looking to kind of remove some of your assets or your investments from things like the stock market, the bond market, from savings accounts, etc. You can remove yourself from the system by buying precious metals. If enough people, and this is still, it's hardly mainstream right now, investing in silver and gold, but as it becomes, because I believe it will, as it becomes more mainstream and we see more and more people take responsibility for their own finances and for their own future, the future of their family, the financial future at least, by investing in precious metals, we're going to see a monetary revolution. We're going to see at first hundreds of thousands, and then millions, and then tens of millions, and perhaps even more people move away from fiat currencies, these central government controlled fiat currencies. Essentially, our government here in the United States, or I don't care where you are, I don't care if you're in the UK or Canada or Australia or New Zealand or Korea, it doesn't matter where you are around the world. Your government has a significant amount of its power because of its currency, because of its central bank. And in fact, many of these things that you are just irate about, that you are angry about, if you're upset about foreign wars or abuses of freedoms or infringements of freedoms or breaches of the Constitution, or you just don't like the guy in office, or you don't like the Congress or your own state government or whatever, much of the power that they have is because of their fiat currency. And a lot of these functions of the government are funded by central banks, by printing money. They won't be able to exist without these fiat currencies, at least not in their current form. So a lot of the injustices around the world, you can trace back to central governments, central banks, fiat currencies, things of those nature. And you can fight that all. You can become part of something bigger. You can join the monetary revolution by buying into precious metals. That's just the first step. That's not the be-all, end-all. There's much more to this, right? There's an information revolution, the new information revolution, not tech-based, but where people slowly but surely, and this is happening right now, you've heard this whole fake news thing over the last 18 months, but you see a lot of people move away from mainstream media, move away from kind of government or elite-approved sources of information, and they look to alternative media sources, just like this channel. You become part of the information revolution, right? In terms of finances, there are plenty of things you can do. You can, somewhat remove yourself from the banking system. You can remove yourself from things like 401ks and IRAs, and you can understand that things like pension funds are nothing more than Ponzi schemes in the end. Social Security, things of those nature. You can remove yourself from the system. There's so much more to this than just precious metals, this monetary revolution, this information revolution. But you can become a part of something bigger by purchasing silver and gold. So that's it right there. Getting it in under 20 minutes roughly. The top 3 reasons in my book as to why I think precious metals are a good asset to own, a good asset to buy. Certainly there's many more, right? Many people buy precious metals or silver because they like shiny objects. Maybe some people buy them as collectibles, right? Some people will buy them things like graded coins or unique old bars of poured bars of silver or whatever. They'll buy them as sort of a collectible, as what you'd call a numismatic value, meaning most of the value is derived because it's rare, not because of the precious metals content. And I understand that as well. And I'm sure many of you guys can think of other reasons that you might buy precious metals, but these are really the top three reasons: a hedge, and then an investment, and finally, the third one kind of encapsulates all these other reasons. You can become a big part of something bigger. You can become a part of a monetary revolution. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video down below in the comment section. And you know what? I would appreciate if you answered a question for me. What's the number one reason that you've invested in silver and gold? And the second question is, how long have you been invested in silver and gold? Because I like to get an idea of that. Is this one of the very first videos you've watched on this topic, or have you kind of been on board with this for months or for years or even decades by now? I'd love if you would answer those questions for me down below. As always, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this video, and God bless.